Let me start by saying something clearly. The people of Cooper Spain deserve compassion, dignity, and a lawful solution. But humanitarian truth must not become an excuse for political spin. And this is where I believe Nikisha Burchell's argument goes wrong. Because her argument is essentially this: the PNP was different. The PNP paused enforcement. The PNP tried to acquire the land. The PNP lost in court, but appealed, and therefore she says the PNP cares. And in essence, the JLP does not. She says they are not the same. Well, that is true. They're not the same. It is a very effective political message, but it is deeply flawed because we tried is not the same thing as we were right. The PNP did absolutely intervene. The records show that. They tried to stop enforcement and they paused the compulsory acquisition. The PNP appealed after losing. Nobody should erase that history. But here's the problem. The strategy pursued by the PNP was rejected by the court. And that is very important. Imagine a doctor saying, I tried to save the patient, but the patient died. It is important that the doctor tried. And it also tells us something about the doctor's intention. But if the treatment was flawed, if the treatment was wrong, then you cannot say because you tried to help, therefore you were right. No. The medical board said your prescriptions were wrong. So you must accept responsibility for the patient's death. Good intentions do not automatically make a policy correct. And that is Miss Burchell's first philosophical blunder. The second blunder is even more important because Miss Burchell wants us to believe that the PNP intervened, and because the PNP intervened, it means the PNP cares. While because the eviction notice was carried out under the JLP, it means the JLP does not care, although it is clear that this is a private eviction notice. Government had nothing to do with it. It's a false moral binary. And I tell you why. Because at Cooper's Pen, there were competing rights. There were vulnerable families, I grant you that. But there was a private landowner. And there was an existing court judgment. And there is the rule of law. So the real question isn't who cares. The real question is, how do you protect vulnerable people while respecting the rights of another citizen and the authority of the courts? That's the difficult question. And there's no political shortcuts around it. Miss Burchell's argument gets even more interesting, because she says the Prime Minister didn't personally order the bulldozer, but because he has the power of the state, he must accept the political responsibility. I actually agree with that principle, but here is it. If executive power creates responsibility, then that principle must apply to the PNP also. And the PNP was in government in 2012. The PNP also exercised executive power. It chose a strategy. The strategy went to court. The courts rejected it. So the PNP cannot say, when the JLP is in government, executive power means responsibility. But when the PNP was in government, we were only trying to help. What responsibility is the PNP taking for its failed strategy? And now we come to the most important part. Ms. Burchell says all politicians are not the same. She's right, they're not. But politicians should not be judged by the moral stories they tell about themselves. They should be judged by what they actually do, by what they know, by what decisions they make, and were those decisions lawful. And based on what the courts said, I don't think the PNP can claim any integrity here. Justice McIntosh described the application as inequitous. Justice Campbell subsequently said he shared that view, and the Court of Appeal upheld the substance of the decision. So when the PNP says we tried to protect them, the answer should be yes. And what happened to the strategy? You tried. Because the people did not disappear when the PNP lost. The problem remained. As a matter of fact, the judges went on to say that the people were misled into believing that they could squat on people's land. We should ask the PNP a question. Why does the PNP believe that its failed strategy in 2012 should now be remembered only as evidence of compassion, rather than also as a government decision which it must accept responsibility? That's the issue. So here's my conclusion. Does the PNP deserve credit for intervening? Maybe. Maybe they do. But I want to say that the bulldozers may have arrived in the early hours of August 11th. But the political failure at Cooper's Pen is much older than the bulldozers. And that is why I call this Burchell's blunder. The blunder is not that the PNP tried, as she says. The blunder is taking "we tried" and turning it into "therefore we cared", therefore we were right, and therefore we are not to blame. That's not accountability. The People's National Party is to be held accountable for what happened in Cooper's Pen. The judges said the people were misled by the party Ms. Burchell supports. We tried is being turned into "therefore we cared", therefore we were right, and therefore we are not to be blamed. That's not accountability. And that's part of the problem with the comrades, you know. They always try to spin. They don't accept responsibility. As a matter of fact, the PNP, they haven't even accepted that they lost the 2025 elections. Pure PR. Pure PR. And Jamaica deserves better than PR. Jamaica deserves the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable for our own political side. You're spinning, Miss Burchell. You are spinning away and you're blundering. But spin and PR does not, spin and PR do not absolve the PNP of responsibility. You should be held accountable. The people of Cooper's Pen have my regards, and I'm sure that the government will do all it can to help them put their lives back together. This is a scandal.